What is up, everybody? We are back. I am George Mossey. Please say hello to my co-host, DeeDee. So this is the George Mossey Show, Seeking Brother Husband, Season 1, Episode 4. This is Part 2 of the podcast. I want to talk about Shara, Patrick, and it used to be Noble. Noble was on the show, but I think Shara's kind of moved past him because now we are watching her on a date with a guy named Valentino, who she met in a grocery store 2 months prior, which is an interesting story because he lives in Texas and she lives in Atlanta, but they met at a grocery store and they didn't really give any background on that. So I don't know where this grocery store was, maybe in an airport. I don't know. But they met and they've been FaceTiming for a couple of months and they met in person. They had a photo shoot and they have good chemistry, right? I feel like things are going well. And she is kind of scouting out dads for her baby. And I mean, it's interesting in the least because Patrick is a no-go. He's not doing any more kids. He's like, that's a no from me. And Noble is basically not in the picture anymore. So she's kind of pressuring Valentino. And he's being pretty honest. Like, he's like, look, I think kids are great. I don't think kids are great for me right now, but I do think they're great. And then she's like, oh, well, hearing him say that he wanted kids but not now could be a red flag. So she decided to take him out to meet Patrick, and Patrick started to ask him the harder questions and grill him. I don't know. It was an interesting dynamic because Patrick is kind of like screening him to make sure that he's right for Shara, which is I like the dynamic. I mean, I love this. I think that all women should have good friends or a guy or someone that is going to help them pick the right guy, because a lot of times you can be blinded in new relationships and new people. So Patrick was like, look, I'm gonna be the guy who asks the hard questions because you don't need to like me. We're not gonna have a relationship other than just, knowing each other. Like, I want to know if you're gonna be the good guy. You're gonna give her the baby she wants. Are you happy with the fact that she has a husband? What do you think about that? Is it going to be an extra thing for you? Because we know that Valentino is like, at first I wasn't okay with it. And then he was like, but the idea that we don't live in the same state would give me enough space to where maybe I could be okay with it. I think that if you need that much space, you're not okay with it, right? I feel like if you have to hide the person from like reality, you're probably not okay with the situation. And bringing a baby into that situation, I think is just going to complicate it to no end because they're already really far away. You would have to consider where you would want to live. And it doesn't seem like Shara and Patrick are interested in moving. So they would expect him to come to Atlanta and there will be all these issues. So what do you think about Shara's baby dream? Because this is like the second guy that she scouted for her baby. So do you think she should just do some IVF and call it a day? Like, how do you feel?
Well, where do you want me to start? Okay, first, Patrick wants to make sure that he's not getting another Noble. Because he made that plain and clear from the beginning. He did not, and he does not like Noble. He never wanted him around. And I think that I really don't get that or get the feeling that she's wanting another relationship. I think she's just wanting a child because that's all she talks about is wanting a baby. And with Patrick saying, no way, no how am I going to have another child? I believe he said his youngest child is 25, I believe. I mean, who would want to start over after their child being 25. I mean, he's 54. So, no, but I don't get the feeling that she's actually wanting a relationship with anyone. I think she's just wanting a baby daddy. He's done made it very clear that his profession is taking all of his attention. He does not have time to pay attention to a child. And a child, when you have a child, it's going to need attention 24 hours, 7 days a week, everything. Your child has to be first. And he's not willing to give up his profession to be there for a child. So, yeah, maybe she just needs to do the IVF. We'll have to see.
See, I respect Valentino for being honest about that, because having a child, he's 100% right. When you are wrapped up in your career and your success and, just taking care of you. And I respect people. If you are all about you and you don't bring a child into the world and you just want to focus on yourself, I have a level of respect for you, because there are
Yeah.
people who bring children into the world who don't have time for them. And they don't have the attention to give to that child. So I feel like Valentino is being extremely unselfish in being so honest about this, because this is going to give that child or would-be child the best possible chance of having two very present people in its life. And I feel like people who make those decisions and are mature enough to know that I don't have the time for that and that child deserves better, I respect people like that. And I think that, like you said, with him being in another state, it kind of does look like Shara's just looking for a baby daddy. She doesn't really need him to be present. She doesn't need him to live with her. She doesn't need him to be around. It's just the baby that she wants. And I think maybe IVF might be easier for everyone. That way there isn't anyone else brought into the dynamic. That way there isn't it is going to be interesting though, because if she does have this baby, as much as Patrick says he doesn't want to have another child, that child will be living in the household with him. It's going to be very hard to not, take on that father role when you have a child there that needs, guidance and attention. He's going to have to take on that role if there isn't another guy present. So even if it is an IVF situation, Patrick is kind of in this too. Even though he said he didn't want to do it, he's kind of in it because it's his household. You can't just ignore the child that's going to be there. It's going to ask you to, pour it something to drink. You have to do it. So it's like he's kind of being forced in it.
Yeah, I agree, because that's his home. I think his problem is he doesn't want to be financially what's the word I'm looking for? He doesn't want to have to be the financial side of it. I don't think he would have a problem in being, have anything to do with the child. He just don't want to have to financially take care of another child. And would he really be okay raising or being around a child that is not his?
That's true.
That's a very good question. Would he be okay? This is something I'm going to have to really, really read about, or really, really pay attention, because that's done sparked my attention very well.
So I want to talk about Kim, Dustin, and Vincent, because we watched Kim go on this skating date with Ryan, the guy that she met at the polyandry party, which Vincent did not enjoy. The skating date went good, but she does feel like he's not really serious enough to understand the dynamic that she's looking for. She said that she would see him again, but she doesn't see how she could add him to her family, like add him as a brother husband, because he's not really serious. He said that he's got several girls in his pocket, that he dates, and he dates around, no one's serious. And, Kim isn't necessarily looking for that. Like, this would be perfect for Elisa, but this is not what Kim is looking for in this situation. She's more so looking for that connection, and Dustin wants to get to know the guy. And, this is more of a family unit. And Vincent finally had a chance to have a conversation with Kim at a putt-putt golf date. And it was the first time that they were able to talk to each other since the party. And he's been voicing his concerns to Kim. And this episode kind of made it very obvious to me that Kim does not listen very well to Vincent when he tells her how he feels, because she was like, oh, well, you weren't having a good time at the party, and I wanted you to enjoy it and see the lifestyle. And he's like, well, I felt ignored. And I felt like you were giving all your attention to other people. And I feel like the communication is just not on a level of understanding between the two of them, because Kim is like, well, I need you to know I want to continue our relationship. I want us to be intimate, but I need you to be okay with the fact that I'm going to be with Dustin and other people. And he's like, well, I've told you that I'm not okay with that. I'm not going to be able to. And it's like, I was like, are they beating a dead horse right now? Because I was like, I feel like Vincent has been super open about this and he's been super honest. And it's like, Kim isn't understanding that his feelings can't change. He just feels how he feels.
Well, this relationship is really interesting to me, because he keeps expressing his feelings, but he knew what he was getting into whenever he got into a relationship with her. She was open. She put it on the table. Okay, you're going to be in a relationship with me, but you need to be okay, to being in a relationship where it's not just going to be me, you, and Dustin. I will be bringing in other, possible brother husbands. He knew this from the beginning. So now is what I'm thinking, or what I'm looking at is, why is it being so hard for him to accept that? Yes, we know that he came out of 2 failed marriages where he didn't think that he was good enough, but he knew what kind of relationship he was going into with her. He knows what is her intentions. So it's got to end sometimes. Either he's going to accept it or he's not.
I feel like since it was just Kim, Dustin, and Vincent for so long, and then they even blended their families and kids were involved, and there wasn't any other guys that he could physically see that he had to meet. I think that
But
is
he
what.
knew from the beginning.
You're right. You're right. I can't argue with you. He did know the situation. So you're right. There's no excuse for him to be bothered by the fact that this is going to happen, because he did know. And I mean, he did accept the fact that Dustin was a part of it too. So I just feel like the change of dynamic might be what is the straw that broke the camel's back. Maybe like it was just, he was okay with the situation just how it was. And you know how they say people hate change, and bringing someone else into that situation was just too much change for him. He's like, I feel like I compromised enough, in this situation and the dynamic it is now. I don't think that I have it in me to compromise anymore and add more and more people, because he's like, when will the number stop? And then how consistent will the people be? Will I meet him and then 2 months later it's someone else? That's a huge change in dynamic. And when they blended families and kids were playing together, that's something that you would have to explain to the children too. Like, oh well, this is another person that's entering into our family dynamic, and that could be hard too. Maybe he's having second thoughts about that as well.
Maybe so, but at the end of the day, she was upfront with him in the beginning. She told him what he was getting into. He accepted it. And he can't keep living on the fact that he came out of, 2 broken marriages. Okay, well, we know that, but you did not go into this relationship thinking it was just going to be you, her, and Dustin. She made it obvious. She told him, she put the cards on the table. Look, you are not the last one. I am going to be, bringing in future possible brother husbands. And how is it that he was okay with it in the beginning and now it's not okay? That's what I'm struggling with, trying to figure it out, because it's not like his other 2 marriages. He didn't know what he was getting into. This relationship, he knew and he knows.
You're right. You're right. This is a not new situation. So, and he's having a new reaction to a not new situation. So I see exactly where you're coming from, because this is something that he had accepted. And I mean, it might just be the end of the relationship. Like maybe it's run its course. Maybe he was like, I've tried this. I want to try a more monogamous type relationship. I don't want to share. Like maybe that's where he is in his heart. But until he's honest with Kim, and then Kim is being, like you said, Kim has been 100% honest with him the whole time. The cards are on the table, even to now. She's like, look, I like you a lot. I want to continue what we're doing, but I need you to be fully okay and on board with the fact of what's going on, because she does want to respect his feelings in that way. She doesn't want to do anything to hurt him in that situation. So she is putting it on the table. She's like, look, I want to make sure that this situation is okay to go forward and both of us are in agreement. So I respect Kim a lot, because Kim is taking his feelings into consideration, because we've seen some other people on the show not take anyone's feelings into consideration at all. So Kim is definitely doing that.
Yes. And as far as Ryan, I don't think it's going to work out, because all I'm hearing is friends with benefits when it comes to him. He's not looking for anything serious. He's just wanting to have a good time. Yeah, I don't see that lasting very long.
All right, guys, that's all the time we have. This was the Seeking Brother Husband, Season 1, Episode 4, George Mossey Show podcast recap. Thank you so much to my co-host, DeeDee, for joining me. We'll be watching next week and talking about it with you guys as well. I'm George Mossey. Make sure to follow me on all social media platforms at George Mossey, georgemossey.com, and anywhere you get your podcast. We'll talk to all of you guys really soon.